Hey, so I wanted to do this podcast because I feel like I've lived a life and had some experiences that I feel like would help someone else. And I feel like in our culture, the art of storytelling, where young people would sit at the feet of our elders and listen and learn and gain wisdom, has been lost. And so now that I'm a woman of a certain age, I feel like it's partly my responsibility to share some of the things that I've learned. And I hope that through my own reflection, you perhaps might see yourself, or you go on your own journey of self reflection to understand some of the lessons that you've learned through your experiences and perhaps share them with others. So, there are three pivotal experiences that I've had in my life that I feel like really shaped who I am and my character. And so I'm going to share those stories with you. The first would be my experience with my father. My biological father was an amazing dad. I was a daddy's girl. I mean, like anything I wanted, he was going to get it. He would even tell my grandmother, what am I going to do with this girl? If she asks me for it, I'm going to get it. I can't tell her no. So we had that kind of relationship. And my parents separated when I was 2, but I would always go see my dad on the weekends. So he was very much involved. So, I was a daddy's girl. And then probably when I was around 8 years old, my dad got sick and he was in the hospital. And, so I would go see him after school. My mom would take me to go see him. And then this one particular day, my mom was really tired when she got off of work. And I just kept asking her, Mommy, can I go see my dad today? Please, can you take me to go see my dad today? And she was like, we'll go another day. We can go tomorrow. I'm really tired. And I just kept begging her, Mommy, please, 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 can we go? Finally, she's like, okay, I'll take you. So we go. I see my dad. As usual, we're talking, we're playing. And then he's like, I'm starting to get a little tired. So you go home. I'll see you tomorrow. So we go home. I give him a hug and a kiss. We leave. And by the time we arrive home, my mom gets a phone call from my aunt that my dad had passed away. Apparently, shortly after we left, the nurse said that he had got up to go to the restroom, and then after that, he got back in the bed and he had passed away. I'll speak for myself. I've heard about people losing their parents when they were young, and I could never fully really understand what that feels like, of course, because I'm a kid, and I just can't imagine like what it would feel like if my mom or my dad weren't here. But I just remember being devastated. I mean, in school, in church, in the supermarket, at the park, anywhere, I would just bust out and start crying. My mom told me that my dad had died from complications of AIDS. And so I just remember being devastated. Like, I cannot believe that my dad is gone. And I just remember feeling like I don't want to be here anymore. I want to die. I want to go be with my dad. Not really thinking about my mom, but just how much I miss my dad. And so, sometime later, I don't remember exactly how long it had been since my dad passed, but it was still relatively close to the time that he had passed. My aunt came with my 2 cousins, and they came to pick my mom and I up, and we were going to go shopping. And we lived in Reservoir Village by South Orange Avenue in Newark. And we were driving down the street not far from the house, and a car ran a stop sign and hit us. And my mom told me, and I think I need to say this first, that this part of the story, I'm telling it as it was told to me because in the accident I sustained some injuries and I had memory loss, so I don't remember the accident. So my mom told me that as she was turning around to see if I had my seatbelt on, the car had hit us. And she said her shoe had flown off, and once the car we were in had, it spun around, and once it stopped, she turned around to see if everyone was okay. I had an older cousin on one side and a younger cousin on the other side. And she said, everybody said they were okay. And when she looked at me, I was sitting in the middle and I was slumped over in the seat and I wasn't responsive. So my mom, she had worked at UMD, University of Medicine and Dentistry in Newark. And so she told everyone to get up the car and she laid me down in the car and she was still trying to talk to me and I was unresponsive. So she said she slid me out of the back seat onto the sidewalk. And as she laid me down, my eyes rolled in the back of my head and she said I wasn't breathing. So my mom started doing CPR immediately and, someone called 911. And when they got there, they told her that had she not done CPR when she did, that I probably would have been gone by the time they arrived there. So after that, apparently I had sustained 2 hematomas on my brain from hitting my cousins, with the sway of the car. I had one here and one here. I had brain injuries. I was paralyzed on my left side and I was in a coma. And the doctors had told my parents, my mom and my stepdad, that they did not really expect me to come out of this coma, but that if I did, that they should expect for me to be a vegetable. And my parents were like, we don't care. However she comes back, we just want her back. And they said that it was people from my church, from my school, from the neighborhood that had come to the hospital, and they would just come. And they said every time someone walked in, they would just start crying because just the sight of it, is breathing tubes and IVs and just tubes and everything all over. And people would just bust out and start crying. And every day, my stepdad would sing Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross in my ear. And I was in a coma for about a week. And around the time when I was waking up, my mom said, I think my dad was like in the waiting room. My mom had gone to get something to eat. And the nurse was in there and she heard me saying something. So she ran to get my dad and she's like, she's coming out of the coma and she's saying something. And when they came in and kind of kneeled down over me, they said that I was singing Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross. And my mom told me that sometime shortly after I woke up out the coma, that I told her that I had a dream and I went to heaven to see my dad. And so she was like, tell me about the dream. So I said that I was at my grandmother's house who lived on Greenwood Avenue in East Orange. And there were like these little Pac-Mans that came and they were eating the clouds and there was a light. And then I went up into the clouds and I told my mom that I saw my brother Jared, who had passed when he was a baby. I was only 2. I saw my Aunt Josephine, who was my mom's sister that had passed away. And I was telling her how I saw my dad and we were having so much fun and we were playing and I was so happy and he was so happy. And then after some time, he said, I love you, but you have to go back because your mommy misses you. And I said, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. He said, but you can't. I love you, but you have to go back because your mommy misses you. And so, I was sad because I didn't want to go. He said, I love you and I'll see you again, but you got to go back. And, we hugged, and then I left. And my mom said that she was listening to the story and she's like, okay, it seems like a dream that, a kid could have. But she said, I told her that I also saw my grandma Rose, who was my father's grandmother that passed away before I was even born. So I had never seen this woman ever, not a picture or nothing. And my mom said that I described her to a T. And it was at that moment that my mom was like, you went somewhere. And, during the time that after I woke up out the coma, I had to wear a helmet because I had a brain injury in case I fell to protect my head. I was on seizure medication because I would have seizures from the brain injury. Due to my paralysis, I had to learn how to walk and talk again because when I woke up out the coma, I reverted back to a 2-year-old. So my speech was that of a 2-year-old. So I had to go through rehabilitation. I was in the hospital probably for about 3 months. I went from UMD trauma unit to United Hospital to Children's Specialized Hospital in Mountainside, and that's where I did a lot of my rehabilitation. And I remember my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Bone, she did not want me to fall behind, so she volunteered on her own time to come to the hospital to tutor me. And I would always go to the Ronald McDonald phone and I would call my mom and she would say, I'm going to come see you. Do you want me to bring you something? And I would always say, I want a cheeseburger Happy Meal from McDonald's and books because I always loved to read. And my mom would bring me books and I was in the room with 2 other girls who had cerebral palsy. And even though I was young, I could remember feeling grateful that I could get up out of bed and I could walk to the bathroom, albeit slow. I could walk to the bathroom on my own. I think now, in retrospect, that I never shared that story with anyone because I was always concerned about, what people would think. But now in this space, I'm confident in saying that, something that existed on this plane also existed in another. And I'm sure of that. It really made me feel like through all of that, God spared my life for a reason. Because to know me today, you would never know that I sustained any of the injuries that I did or had any of the experiences as a result of that accident that I had. And I just carried it with me through high school and college and adulthood. And I really felt like my life had a purpose. At the time, I didn't know what it was. And now I feel like I do. So I'm sharing this story with you.